5 years ago, Captain Edrin Kestrel held the breach alone for 11 minutes so 300 trapped villagers could clear the ridge, and General Holt Draven called it insubordination. The official record reads different. It says Captain Kestrel disobeyed a direct retreat order. It says his stubbornness cost the garrison 4 squads it never recovered. It does not say the squads were already gone before he held the line, or that the villagers walked out alive because of him, or that he was still standing when the drift horde finally pulled him under. Draven signed the dishonor decree 2 days after the funeral, while the ink on the casualty report was still wet. 5 years later, nobody at Greymoor Garrison reads the official record anymore. They don't have to. They just call his daughter Rubble Girl and hand her another cart. Leora Kestrel hauls stone for a living now. 14 when they buried what was left of her father under a decree instead of a flag. 19 now, she has learned exactly how much weight a cart axle can take before it screams, and exactly how long she can carry a load past that point anyway. The Auxiliary Corps doesn't pay laborers. It calls the labor restitution, a daughter working off a debt the garrison invented and never explained, and Leora has stopped asking when the debt will be paid, because she already knows the answer is never. She has also learned every inch of the thing that started it all. The last bastion. Her father's design, 6 years in the drafting, a layered ward fortress meant to seal the breach for good so no garrison would ever again need to choose between a retreat order and 300 lives. He never finished it. 61% built when he died holding the line his own unfinished wall couldn't yet hold for him. Sealed since, on Draven's order, behind a placard that says failed project, do not resume, in a yard Leora's cart route runs past twice a day, every day, like a wound she's required to keep checking. She remembers the day they read the decree out loud at muster, the whole garrison assembled, because Draven wanted it heard, not just filed. Coward's Wall, someone in the back row said, loud enough to carry, and nobody corrected him. 14-year-old Leora stood at the edge of the formation in a coat 2 sizes too big, her father's coat, the only thing of his they let her keep, and listened to a room full of men her father had once led call him a liability until the word stopped meaning anything at all. She didn't cry. She has never let herself cry where Draven could see it land. Pick it up, Kestrel. Corporal Fen Adare doesn't bother looking at her when he says it, the way he never bothers looking at her. Some of us have actual work. She picks it up. She always picks it up. Around her, soldiers who once saluted her father step over her shadow without seeing her in it. It is, she has decided somewhere in the last 5 years, the only inheritance left to spend, the cart, the ration card, the long walk past his sealed wall, and she spends it the way he taught her to spend everything, without complaint, and without forgetting. What she does not know, yet, is that her father built one more thing into the last bastion before he died, and it was never meant for the wall. It was meant for her. She finds it on a night nobody's watching, in the vault under the old command post that the garrison stopped using once Draven moved the war room closer to the gate, a small steel locker stamped with her father's seal, untouched since the funeral because nobody else still has the key. Inside, blueprints, hundreds of pages, his handwriting crowding every margin, word lines crossed out and redrawn a dozen times until they were right. Notes to himself in the corners, won't hold past 60% without a settlement clause, need a way to finish it without me. And on the final page, underlined twice, in a hand she'd know anywhere, for Leora. Finish it. Dad. She laughs, short and bitter, because finishing a 61% fortress with a crowbar and a laborer's ration card isn't a plan, it's a joke he left her by accident, the kind of impossible task only a man who believed in her completely could leave behind without a second thought. Then her hand brushes the locker's base, and the world goes white. System, bloodline signature confirmed, Kestrel. Unfinished structure detected, the last bastion. Completion debt, 39%. Class available, Mason's Reckoning. Settle the debt. She says yes before she finishes reading the question. System, Mason's Reckoning, active. Effect, any structure designed or begun by a blood relative can be completed instantly using materials within range, final integrity scales to the size of the debt settled. Current target, the last bastion. Debt, 39%. Projected integrity, undetermined, a debt this size has never been recorded. The wall doesn't rebuild itself overnight, because she isn't reckless, she's her father's daughter, and her father never did anything without a plan. So she does it the way he would have, in pieces, in silence, one section at a time, using the rubble she's been hauling for 2 years like it was always meant for this. The first night she settles 11 feet of the eastern ward line and nothing happens, no alarms, no glow anyone topside would notice, just a quiet, structural certainty humming under her palm that wasn't there before. The second night she pushes further and a guard patrol passes 40 feet away without looking up. By the third week, scouts who probe the eastern wall don't come back, and nobody connects it to the laborer who stopped looking quite so tired in the mornings. One night a patrol cuts its route short and doubles back early, and she has 11 seconds to bury herself in the rubble pile she's been working from before 2 soldiers walk the exact stretch of wall she just finished. They don't notice the ward line is 6 feet longer than it was the night before. They never do. She stays flat in the rubble until they're gone, heart going hard enough to count, and almost decides right there that it isn't worth the risk, almost decides her father's last line to her was a kindness she doesn't have to keep. Then she goes back to the blueprints that night and finds another note in the margin, smaller than the rest. If you're reading this, you're braver than I gave you credit for. Keep going. She keeps going. By the 6th week, the garrison is calling it the ghost wall and arguing in the mess hall about whether it's repairing itself or whether someone's running an unauthorized salvage operation worth a court-martial. Corporal Adare stops handing her carts without a word, not kindness, just a slow, grudging unease, the look of a man recalculating something he was sure he'd already solved. He starts watching her work instead and saying nothing, which is the closest thing to respect he has ever shown anyone in this garrison, including himself. General Draven hears the rumors and kills them in front of his staff before they can spread further. A wall doesn't fix itself, he says, the same flat certainty he used 5 years ago to sign a dead man's dishonor. Find out who's wasting garrison resources on a failed project and put them on report. He has no idea he's about to put his own salvation on report. The breach doesn't wait for paperwork. 3 months after she finds the locker, it tears wider than it has in a decade, wider than the night it took her father, and the drift horde that pours through is bigger than anything Greymoor's official defenses were ever built to hold. The eastern flank, the old wall, the one Draven actually approved and funded and never once doubted, buckles inside the first hour. Soldiers who mocked her for 5 years are screaming into dead radios for reinforcements that don't exist, falling back toward a command post that has no second line behind it. A boy named Tamsin Reel, 19, the same age as her, goes down under rubble at the collapsed eastern gate, and the squad that should be pulling him out is already running the other way. Leora doesn't run the other way. Leora is already moving, against the retreat, toward the one wall nobody else trusts. She doesn't need a weapon. She needs the rest of the debt. System, completion debt remaining, 39%. Settle in full. She doesn't hesitate this time, and she doesn't hide it this time either. The last bastion rises in front of the entire retreating garrison the way her father drew it on page 1, not patched, not improvised, finished, every ward line locking into the next exactly the way 6 years of his handwriting said it should, blue-white light running the seams like the wall is remembering how to stand. Then it keeps going past the blueprint, because 39% of unpaid debt against a structure that size doesn't settle quietly, it overpays. The wall climbs another 30 feet that was never in the original design, ward light spilling half a mile across the breach floor, and the drift horde hits it at full charge and the front rank simply stops existing against it. System, debt settled in full. The last bastion, structural integrity, 214% of original design specification. Classification, above spec. Unranked. The new stone closes over the collapsed gate exactly where Tamsin Reel is pinned, and instead of crushing him, it lifts the rubble off him like the wall already knew he was there. He crawls out coughing, alive, staring up at 30 feet of glowing fortress that wasn't supposed to exist an hour ago. Soldiers who were running toward the gate a minute ago are standing still now, staring up at a wall that wasn't there this morning, watching it do in one impossible night what 5 years of funded, approved, official defense never managed once. General Draven finds her at the base of it an hour after the horde finally breaks and scatters back through the tear, his staff behind him too exhausted to stand at full attention, the entire eastern flank of his garrison alive because of a structure he ordered sealed and a girl he made haul rubble in payment for it. He doesn't ask how. He doesn't need to. The wall is still glowing behind her, and every soldier left standing tonight is looking at it like it's the only thing that's ever told them the truth. Your father's project, he says, and it costs him something to say it the way he says it now, not the failed one, not the obsession, not the word he wrote into a decree 5 years ago. It's finished. It was always going to be, Leora says. You just buried it before it could be. Draven is the kind of man who has spent 30 years being the one other men beg to. He's never once knelt to anyone in this garrison, not to a general above him, not to grief, not to a casualty list. He kneels anyway, in the mud at the base of a wall built by a man he dishonored and finished by the daughter he worked half to death, and he asks her, not orders, asks, to let the last bastion stand under her authority instead of his, because tonight made plain that his authority has nothing left to offer, hers can't do better. The decree gets rewritten that same week, full honors, posthumous, Captain Idrin Kestrel's name struck clean of every charge Draven signed and every record he can find to unsign it in. Leora doesn't read the new paperwork. She doesn't need ink to know what her father was, she's been carrying the proof of it on her shoulders for 5 years. Corporal Adore is the first to salute her, in front of the whole assembled garrison, and he means it, no smirk left in him, no card in her hands for him to point at instead. The others follow, one row at a time, until the woman they called Rubble Girl for 5 years is the only thing this garrison is standing at attention for. Tamsin Reel is among them, still bandaged, still favoring the leg the rubble nearly took. He doesn't say thank you. He just stands a little straighter when it's his turn, the way a man stands for someone who decided he was worth saving before he'd done anything to earn it. Someone finally pries the failed project placard off the yard fence that afternoon, and nobody asks Draven's permission first. Nobody needs to anymore. She climbs the new stairwell that night and stands on top of the wall, 214% of what anyone ever said was possible, ward light still humming faint under the stone like a pulse, and looks out over a quiet breach, the horde's dead already being cleared by soldiers who answer to her now without being told to twice. The weight in her hands used to be someone else's punishment, handed down cart by cart, year by year, for a debt she never owed. Tonight it's the only weight she's ever chosen to carry herself, finished, on her own terms, exactly the way her father always believed she would, and for the first time since she was 14 years old in a coat too big for her, she lets her shoulders drop, lets the breath out she's been holding for 5 years, and finally, rests.